Welcome to the first episode of Between the Silos, where we talk about sales and marketing alignment and why so many companies struggle with it. I'm your host, Jen Lawrence, CEO of Vi, and today I'm joined by Sarah Cords. Sarah is the Vice President of Client Experience and Strategy at Vi, where she leads the agency's efforts to drive impactful marketing strategies. With over 2 decades of experience in the marketing world, Sarah has worked across various industries, is highly skilled in developing strategic plans, and leads high-performing teams. She's a certified Dare to Lead facilitator, a certified professional co-active coach, and an expert in inbound marketing. Outside of work, Sarah is deeply involved in her community, serving on multiple nonprofit boards, and when she's not working, you can find her enjoying the outdoors with her family. Welcome, Sarah.
Yes, thank you. Excited to be a part of Between the Silos.
Excited to have you on the first episode. We're here to talk about how businesses can gain confidence that they're getting their money's worth out of their marketing investment. As our first guest on the show, you're going to be the first to indulge in a segment I'm affectionately naming our Tale from the Trenches. I'd love for you to tell me about a time when you've seen marketing ROI attribution go terribly wrong or wonderfully right for you, a client, or maybe someone else entirely. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I have a few in mind that I thought would be good to discuss today. The first one is actually with a company that I've worked with on and off over the years, and they have a great reputation in the industry that they serve, very B2B and very high-end, high-ticket machinery. They wanted to break into an entirely new market segment, and part of their plan was their great reputation and the personas that they served in their current market. That equity and value and impact would carry over into this new market. Turns out that new market actually had entirely different things that they cared about, and that brand equity just didn't translate. So not only were they entirely different personas that were being spoken to, but they learned very quickly that to break into that market segment was going to take a different narrative, a different approach, and just a different understanding of that persona, so that what they were talking about resonated.
Interesting.
As part of that, they also their marketing spend was lower than what it would take to break into that market. So let's say a typical company spends 3 to 5% on marketing, which is still pretty low for a lot of companies. This company was spending 1%. Also, the investment to break into a new market the first 2 years is a lot greater than that. So that was also affecting the success that they were having. So that's one that, while I wouldn't say it went entirely wrong because they were learning a lot as they went, it definitely wasn't going as planned.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit, before you move on to your next tale, a little bit about that percent of spend and ROI. Do you see that a lot of companies are spending that 3 to 5%? And is it typically of that top line or bottom line that they're spending 3 to 5%?
Yeah, that's a great question. In an agency, we see all different types of budgets, and the budget that might be being carved out for an agency partner like ourselves doesn't necessarily translate into the entire marketing budget. But in general, I think the clients that see the most success definitely are investing closer to that percentage or even more. And your question on top line number or bottom, I think the most common thing we see is the bottom number.
Yep, 3 to 5% on the bottom line. Yep, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Awesome, thank you. And that, that kind of goes into your story about this breaking into a new market. Like, do you think that when companies are entering a new market or a new product, they have to invest more than that or pull it from a different bucket to see ROI on that?
Yes. I think when we see clients struggle the most, with go-to-marketing plans, new product releases, trying to break into just even a new geographic territory, or, for instance, we were just talking with someone yesterday. They based on everything going on in their market, they want to target the battery industry for what they manufacture. Um, so to do that and to keep your stronghold in the other markets and to keep all the lights on everywhere else that you're doing marketing, it's going to take an increase in investment to now get in front of an entirely new audience in a segment that you maybe don't have a lot of case studies or a lot of current contacts. So the most success is when you can pull funds together either from a different bucket or invest additional funds. Now, is that always possible? No. We work with companies that have multiple brands, and it's maybe a 30-70 split of which brand gets which part of the spend. And that's really normal. But
Yeah,
I mean, that's
wonderful.
kind of the difficult decisions I think all companies have to make.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And I think it does impact ROI because, if you can't spend that, and we have plenty of clients who are like, wow, we're nowhere close to that. And that's not necessarily right or wrong. It just impacts the ROI and the speed of results oftentimes. Would you agree with
Yeah,
that?
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If somebody, there was a company we were talking with that their revenue goal for the year total was 17 million. They weren't going to hit that in 2024. They were going to hit 15 million, but they were looking at a 20 million goal in 2025. So they were looking at a very small marketing investment in order to achieve that goal. And when we ran the percentages and showed them that actually that spend was, just based on how much they wanted to grow their revenue, was not going to have that ROI. It can contribute, but it's definitely not going to get them as far.
That is such a great point. So, can you expand a little bit on that? Like, how companies set goals and how we back into those goals of like, what is reality and what is the work and investment it needs that you need to invest to get there? In that example is a perfect one where they want to grow by a bigger percent than what their investment really will get them to in the short time.
Yeah, we kind of did the math with them on the phone, and okay, if your minimum investment in an agency partner, let's just say, is $100,000, well, that was such a small percentage of the increase in revenue that they wanted to see. So that was a part of the conversation, and then they transparently said, hey, if we didn't have what was in place to get to 17, the percentage of growth that they were talking about to 20 million was going to have to come down, because the percentage of growth from 15 to 20 was a great deal larger.
Absolutely. And I see often too, like it depends where they're at in their journey, right? Like how long have they been at this? How much of the foundation is in place? How much of that needs to be optimized? Or are we more at like a sort of crawl run phase where we can really start just doing more promotion that the foundation is really set?
Yeah, that's such a good point too. And to be fair, these are conversations we have with prospects or people who are just interested in talking to us about how we run marketing strategies, because we are full service digital agency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we're always happy to have those transparent conversations. Now, at the end of the day, your company's budget is what it is. So we're going to create a plan to maximize the results and to provide that ROI as much as the budget will allow. But we also want to have that open and honest conversation about realistic expectations within that spend.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a perfect segue for why isn't it easier? So let's get to that section of it. So why isn't it easier? Why do you see that companies struggle to trust that they'll get a fair cost to value ratio when they're investing, or really just that trust in marketing agencies? Why do you see that?
Yeah, that is such a great segue. It's a great topic. One of the biggest things is, I think, a few. the crawl, walk, run, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to see a lot of results right away, but you don't have, let's say, any marketing tech stack, or you don't feel like the right lists are in the CRM, or the sales team's not using the CRM, those are all really common challenges for any business across any industry. Those can make it really challenging, though, for marketing to connect the data dots to show that ROI, though. So your data in is only as good as your data out,
Mm-hmm.
and that's part of it. And we work with lots of companies to start getting those systems integrated and talking to each other so they can see and track that ROI. I think past experiences with agencies who maybe say they can do something and they can't, or just past experiences and maybe not being ready for that run stage,
Mm-hmm.
but wanting it, and maybe not realizing how long it takes to build that. And a lot of agencies can build that in 3 to 6 months, but if the expectation is to have, 10 leads a month, but the first 6 months is a really foundational period, it'll take time to get there.
Absolutely.
And then I think the last one is just that visibility. During those foundational stages, it's hard to have visibility into the ROI, and KPIs, right? Or it feels like they're a little bit more vanity KPIs, like total web traffic. If your website doesn't have great SEO or domain authority, those can all be factors. Or lots of people come to us with wanting more leads, but their website's not working great.
Mm-hmm.
So to build that website takes a little bit of time before you're really going to see the results. And then, as you and I have experienced a lot recently, is when that data isn't connected, then clients are questioning if the numbers are really true and
Mm-hmm.
accurate.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to go a little rogue for 1 second, because what you were saying, is in that crawl, walk, run. I was on the phone with a prospect the other day, and they maybe don't know where they are in the phase, or they've hired a different agency to do a piece of that. And so, can you just talk about, Sarah, like how do clients know what they need? And I guess I'm sort of teeing you up for, you talked about lists, and you talked about CRM, and you talked about website, and usually we see people come in at one of those without like backing up and going, okay, where are we going, and what are the pieces, and in what order to get there? So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that topic.
Yeah, love that train of thought, because we run into it all the time when we're talking to prospects. So it's almost like there's three buckets, right? There's people who know they're in the crawl, walk, run stage. They know, and they're pretty transparent about that. And we've certainly talked with our fair share of people in that. And then you have people who they don't necessarily know exactly where they're at or what they need, but they know they need a good partner.
Mm-hmm.
And so they come in and we talk them through all of that, right? What that would look like, what those phases are. And then you have people who are really savvy, and maybe they've come from an organization that had all of that, and they're going into an organization that needs to build it. But they're pretty clear on what's needed, and they can help you move a little bit faster because they've already been there and they know where they need to go.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so interesting. Like, from the outside, when we are meeting with these prospects, like, I don't think any of them have like gone wrong by hiring a certain agency. The one in particular I'm thinking about, they hired very much of like a brand agency who built their brand and built the website, and that's awesome. But now they're at like walk, run, and they need some leads. And so what we're finding is we almost have to go back to foundation, because they haven't thought about maybe that UI UX, or they haven't thought about conversion or optimization. And so I don't know if you have any thoughts there too, is like, sometimes people think they're in walk or run, and you kind of got to go back before you can do that, because the objective is different.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And I think that is going back to your original question of why is it so difficult? It's because it takes a big investment to do any of this. And then if you have a partner that can do certain parts of it, you might have a slight distrust then with a partner. Can they really do this next phase for me? I think that's really normal, a normal caution. But I'd say that is one thing we see that holds people back from making those decisions on those partners, especially if they've never experienced a partner like what we do, where we can do all of that tech. We can, understand your sales process and get those systems talking and make those recommendations, and then have those strategic plans that track to that ROI. It's a very different experience than, say, that agency that came in and did your brand work and your website.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
we're not going to come in and just tell you to scrap that website. You just invested a lot of money in all of that. But we can go through and do, customer journey work. We're saying, if we put these types of CTAs on these pages or add this module, that'll get you closer to what's going to increase ROI and conversions for the next year or two. And then you can think about an overhaul.
I love that. Is there any advice you would give on, like, when we talk with people who have maybe built a website or done that somewhere else, and now we're going, okay, yep, let's go to the next phase. Like you said, they sort of feel a distrust, and I don't think they need to, but again, like, how do you reassure people it's okay to go back, to go forward faster?
Yeah, well, I think open communication is part of it. Just having these types of conversations with our clients. Um, you and I have heard over the years that people really appreciate that. And then not sugarcoating it or looking at it through rose-colored glasses is a big one. You know, we have a client right now that doesn't think their website's great. They don't have the money to invest in a new one. We need to still drive traffic to it. Well, is that traffic going to convert? We're spending all this money to get the traffic there. And if you don't feel like your website's the right tool, or it doesn't have the right information on it, that that is a really tough spot for any leader or company to be in and make those choices of where are you going to spend the money. And we'll again just talk through those challenges. We're not, at the end of the day, going to force people to spend what they don't have, but we will tell them this is going to affect your results, so we want to make sure that we're all on the same page here on what we're trying to do.
Yes, preach. Yep. So often, right? Like, I think every day we're on calls with clients who are like, I need this outcome, and we try to be very open and transparent on, I hear you, and in order to get there, these are the things you have to do. And sometimes they just can't. Money, time, whatever it may be. And so that's understandable. Everyone is in a different situation, but it is having those conversations of, like, what are expected outcomes we can get, then knowing maybe the website isn't set up to convert, or knowing that we have these things that we ideally would fix but can't right now. So it's not like you can't get ROI, but it is important to have those open conversations on, like, good, better, best, right? Like, is this what we want it to be, or is this where we are today while we get some momentum?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's all kinds of workarounds. Let's create a campaign landing page. Let's create a little microsite. There's all kinds of things we can do to bridge the gap between crawl, walk, run.
Wonderful. Thank you. That was great. Last but not least, hot seat. You ready?
Yeah.
Ready? All right, here we go.
Let's do it.
Early morning emails or late night brainstorming?
Oh, early morning.
Okay. Really?
I'm most productive in the morning.
Good to know. So all the slacks in the evening, don't do those anymore. Got it. Meeting snack, sweet or savory?
Oh, I never like to eat or drink in meetings, but if I had to choose, I think I would do savory.
All right. Say what kind?
Pretzels,
Oh,
or
really?
anything with peanut butter and chocolate's good too.
Sure. Yes. Got it. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining today. It's been great having you. And for all your listeners out there, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you always know when a new episode lands. Until then, don't forget, the best things to happen to your team will always happen between the silos. Catch you next time.